we're going to wake up one day and they're going to reprice a coin, and they're going to call it the $30 trillion coin. It's going to be backed by all the gold in Fort Knox, and it's going to solve the debt. They're going to go ahead and then they're going to just reliquify the economy backed by gold again.
Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Bob Kudla. Bob is the creator and owner of TradeGeniusAcademy.com, and I am very happy to have him back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Bob, welcome back to the Spotlight.
Dave, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. And let's start off with what's going on out in the UK. We know that Theresa May, Jean-Claude Juncker, they are trying to hammer out this deal. It looks like the people are not going along with it, and there might be a delay. We don't know as of yet. We're getting very, very close to that time. Do you think that this Brexit deal will ever happen, or do you think the central bank, the EU, are going to continually stall and say, listen, you do it our way or it's the highway?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why Britain's even waiting around. Most of the money center banks said they're not leaving London for Frankfurt or Paris because the tax regimes in those countries are awful for those people. The wealthy that are making money in London get to keep it in the city of London, but they don't get to keep it if it was in France or Germany. The other thing, too, is that Britain has Germany by the short hairs because Germany exports so much to Great Britain that Great Britain's they're in charge. And so I don't really understand why Britain's hesitating or hemming and hawing on this thing. I don't know who's getting greased to keep this thing together, but the Brits are far better off. The U.S. already said they'll do a bilateral deal with England tomorrow. So I'm not really quite sure why this thing is even a thing, to be honest with you. But I think it eventually gets done.
Yeah, I think eventually something's going to happen because I think the people are going to say, okay, enough's enough. And I know the central bank, the EU, I think they'll get hurt a lot more than the UK if the UK leaves. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And look, you know when Brexit will happen the next day? When Italy's banks start defaulting on their deposits and start bailing in, England will be out of there in a New York minute because they don't want to suck all of the wealth of England into the EU's black hole. So I don't know. It definitely is going to happen. It'll happen sooner versus later. I just don't understand the drama, to be honest with you. Maybe they're just trying to punish the people for having the nerve to think that their vote counts. I don't know.
I think that's what it is. I think they're telling the people, listen, we know what you want, but we don't want to give it to you. And I think that's what they're continually pushing. Control. That's really what they want.
Yep.
I wanted to talk about Trump, and he's working with Xi Jinping right now on this trade deal. He's been tweeting out that the trade deal is going very well. They delayed the tariffs. And from your perspective, is this going to really help the United States if he hammers out a trade deal with China?
I guess it depends on what the trade deal looks like. And the tariffs, it was actually the increase in the tariffs because we already have tariffs for China now. So, I always say, because we've been trading, we're trying to figure out why this is a good thing for the U.S. because, when the trade deal gets done, it's just going to benefit China. So I don't know what the deal needs to look like to benefit us. So, yeah, so I don't know. I don't think it's going to benefit us, to be honest with you. I think this is it's going to probably be a fig leaf, I think. But unless Trump really, because look, China cannot agree to what Trump wants them to agree to because it'll put China into a depression within a year. So whatever they decide to do, it's the imbalances either remain, or if they don't remain, China is going to go down into a black hole. So I just can't see a deal really getting done, to be honest with you.
But we do see China saying that, okay, we're not going to manipulate our currency, even though they say they don't manipulate the currency. We're going to keep it pretty stable. We're going to buy more agricultural products from you. I mean, is he just trying to make it an even balance because it was a little bit off balance in the past, and he's trying to even things out right now? Yeah,
so, and maybe I'm in a minority opinion here. China only buys from us what they can't intellectually create themselves so they can steal it or number two, what they absolutely have to have in order to produce higher and finished goods. We are really a colonial country to China. Agricultural goods, lumber, paper, things of that nature are that's why we left England in the first place, because we ship our raw goods over to sorry about that. We ship our raw goods over to England, and then they brought finished products back. China's doing the same thing to us. So, and then the stuff that we have that China wants, they only want it so they could turn around and reverse engineer it, like our airplanes, our chips, our high advanced manufacturing products, and the things that we want to give them, they don't want to give us, like banking and insurance and financial services products, because China's a closed economy. So I think it's a rock and a hard place, Dave, to be honest with you. And I think what Trump's going to probably end up doing is I think he's going to end up having to keep the tariffs on to make China's products less competitive and push their manufacturing out. I think the long-term play is to make China less competitive in the global marketplace, not necessarily to balance each other out, because China absolutely is our sole competitor out there today.
That's true. Do you think he's trying to bring any manufacturing back from China into the U.S.? You think
Absolutely.
You think that's one of his goals?
Yeah, I think. Look, if when Trump has a problem, and any president that took over after Obama has the same problem, is how do you grow the economy without growing the debt to such a level where it's even worse than it's growing? So what you do is you have to take it out of the hide of another country. Well, China is the one that has the most imbalance against us. You bring manufacturing back into our country, it's like an apex predator. So it brings more and more businesses that surround it. So you bring the steel industry back, well, everything that has to support the steel industry grows up around that. You bring chips back, fabrication plants back, you bring auto manufacturing back, things of that nature. It brings, satellite businesses along with it as well. So that is absolutely what he's trying to do, and that secures the future, because you create those engineers and the intellectual property and the ability to do the next generation of manufacturing and product set, instead of giving it away to another country. But he absolutely is doing that. He's been consistent on that for 40 years, Dave. From his first book out, he was complaining that Japan was doing it, and then he flipped it over to China. And I think that's the balance he's truly trying to get into this country.
Now, Trump has been tweeting out that the economy is doing fantastic. And he also tweeted out that the Dow is up, the NASDAQ is up since he's taken office, and everything is continually moving along. I know the mainstream media doesn't like to talk about how well the economy is doing. A lot of times, especially coming up to the 2020 elections, we know that many are out there saying, oh, the economy is not as good as everyone thinks. And they just can't really, hit against what he has been doing, but they're trying. And they even forecasted a recession in 2020, which nobody thinks that's happening anymore. I mean, when you look at what he's been doing with the stock market, how have you been benefiting from the market being up and the NASDAQ going up and the economy chugging along here?
Yeah, so we've always been of the opinion that the Fed was going to reverse course, and they're not going to slow this economy down, and commodities and gold and silver and uranium mining and copper mining is where the big money is going to be made, and that's where we've been focusing on. I think the tech and the social media and some of those things and the banks are starting to get a little long in the tooth. So we shifted over to there last year, and it's just been going phenomenally. And we don't see that changing anytime soon. The Fed has just waved the green flag. Look, we're not going to get in the way of this economy. Trump's like, I'm removing every obstacle I possibly can from keeping this economy growing. And I think everybody's of the opinion that if we don't do this, then really bad things are going to happen. And I think what really tipped them off is the rise of the socialist left and their crazy proposals they have. And I think that brought everybody around. I think the progressives, which I don't put in the same camp as the socialists, I think the elites, you saw Buffett start to yammer on here, and Bloomberg, and the Federal Reserve all of a sudden saying, whoa, even Feinstein said, hey, let's slow down here a little bit. And so I think Trump got us in a sweet spot. Demographics are also our friend, Dave, too, because less and less people are entering the workforce because more and more people are retiring. And so it's going to keep the employment levels high or the unemployment levels low. And I think that's going to keep the wages good. And I think we're going to be in a sweet spot. And I agree with you. I'd be shocked if we went into a recession in 2020.
Have you been helping a lot of people out with your training program?
Yeah. So what we do, Dave, we do actually more than just train. We actually provide the trade signals. So we teach them how to set up their charts. We teach them what moves the price. We teach them to see that in a chart. And at the same time, we actually provide them those trade signals. And I sent over to you, if you ever have a chance to put it up there, our track record over the last 100 trades that we've done. It's, we're north of 200% annualized gains. That's over 100 trades. That's pretty good. So, you get the law of averages to keep you from moving one way or the other too much. So we're pretty consistent that way. And we do the same thing on the cryptocurrency side. And then we also have in our portfolio, we help people trade cryptocurrencies as well. And look, that's going to move too, Dave, because some of the dislocations happening around the world is that people are looking for non-banked assets. So cryptocurrencies are going to be fine. The metals, the miners, the commodities are all going to do great. And when I'm talking about copper, uranium, as well as gold and silver, and I think those are things that people are going to be able to make really good returns over the next 2 to 5 years. People need to bear in mind that the U.S. is doing really well. Japan and Europe and China are slowing down, which will bring even more money into this country and more investment into this country. And then that means more prosperity for people in the U.S. and to a lesser extent, Canada and Mexico. So that's where we're helping people make money. And it's going very, very well. And so we see no reason why that's going to change anytime soon.
Now, you mentioned precious metals, commodities, and we see gold on the rise right now. I mean, it's moving up and people are looking at this saying, okay, what is happening right now? Why do you think gold is starting to move up at this time?
It's really, it's basically a yield bet. So when the Fed stopped saying they're going to raise rates, or they said they're going to stop adding to their balance sheet, gold became more attractive as an alternative asset. So that's how it always works. If the dollar is going to get too strong, then people will sell gold. But when the dollar now is probably going to weaken, especially since when this China trade deal gets done, we'll probably try to weaken our dollar, and I'll make gold and silver, oil, uranium, copper, all those metals to go up in price. So that's what's happening. So the Fed gave up. And so what you have is any asset that has scarcity value, Dave, is going to go up in value. And gold is the most scarce.
Do you think the Fed is going to actually maybe lower the interest rate?
Yeah, I think so. I think the plan is get the trade deal done, and then reduce the value of the dollar so that we get the multinationals making more money. And then when the things slow down further, they're going to reduce interest rates to give relief to the consumer. So I think that's the way the plan's going to roll out. And I think that's going to roll out over the next 12 to 18 months. And then I think go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if they lower the interest rates, and I also heard talk about how they might not unwind their balance sheet. They're talking about that also. So everything they were moving forward with, now they're reversing on it. I mean, is this going to make gold really move up a lot faster than anyone would ever think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because when the Federal Reserve was going gangbusters in raising interest rates and reducing their balance sheet, people were talking sub 1,000 gold. Now people are talking maybe gold will get back to all-time highs and maybe back even up to 2,500. And if that happens, silver's at $15, $16. You're looking at probably $45, $50. And it gets back to all-time highs again as well. And just because of relative value of gold and silver are considered currencies or money. So it's going to become a more valuable money than the fiat as the Federal Reserves around the world print like crazy.
So doesn't that pose a problem with the Federal Reserve currency? I mean, if gold moves up, like you're saying, 2,500, if it goes to 3,000 or 4,000, aren't people going to start to say, wait a minute, something's going on here. Gold is moving up. What's going on with the paper currency?
Yeah, absolutely. And what people have to realize, we're the reserve currency. So we're the one-eyed king in the land of the blind. So you're going to see You're going to see the Chinese yuan start devaluing really hard. Europe is in big trouble, Dave. I mean, big trouble. I can't overestimate what kind of trouble the euro is, and so you'll see those currencies start to devalue very hard. That'll keep the dollar relatively strong, but gold and the dollar will move up together in terms of purchasing power, and then gold becomes king. So when gold starts lifting hard against the purchasing power of the dollar, then that's when people start worrying about fiat currencies in general. But you'll see one of the other big currencies stumble before you'll see the dollar stumble. But why wait? Just buy gold,
Yeah. So what you're saying is Europe is in a lot of trouble. Right now, we just spoke about it in the beginning. Brexit, there's a problem there. Italy, you mentioned Italy, there's a problem there. And Germany also had their economic growth is also slowing. China has a problem, and gold is on the rise. I mean, is this like a perfect storm?
Yeah, well, the storm clouds are on the horizon, Dave, and the prudent people are buying. Look, the central banks have been buying gold for the last 10 years. Last year, they bought more gold than they ever bought. So they know what's happening. Chase owns more silver than any entity on Earth. I think 54 million ounces. Don't watch what these guys say. Watch what they do. And China's been buying gold like crazy. Russia's been buying gold like crazy. Germany repatriated their gold. They don't want to give Venezuela back their gold in London because the Brits probably want to keep that gold. So that's going to be the currency. That's going to be the trust currency going forward again, because people are not going to trust the fiat. And that's probably, before I would say it was never going to be in my lifetime, but Dave, it's probably going to be sometime within this next 4 or 5 years. We're going to have a major event. Look, Europe is falling hard. Germany can't survive without a strong China. France, look at France. I mean, they raised diesel 3 cents on people, and they have the country in riot. So, I mean, people are on the edge. The good news is, if you're an American citizen, I think we're going to be the last to feel the really big effects of this stuff. And if Trump keeps doing what he does, then I think we're going to get away relatively scot-free versus the rest of the world, because the unique advantages of the United States.
Before you mentioned that a lot of these individuals like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and many others, they're pushing, for their new Green Deal, free education, free this, free that. And that's going to just cost the United States a lot. Actually, we have to borrow that money because it's trillions and trillions of dollars. Do you ever see any of that actually happening? Is it even possible?
No, it's not. And I think it's all, I don't know what her game is. I think she's trying to be the crazy kid on the block and to make somebody else look more reasonable. But everybody's getting as crazy as she is. So there's no adult in the room on that side of the fence, So no, I just can't see it. $95 trillion, 600,000 per household is what they just scored the Green New Deal. They're just talking out of their rear ends, Dave. And I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to build a narrative, because what's happening in the country now, I think for the first time, there are going to be more voters under the age of 45 than over the age of 45. And I think what they're trying to do now is trying to get those voters excited about, hey, you've been paying in as the boomers have been taking from you. Now it's our turn to take from them. And so, I think that's what they're trying to stir up the juices of these people and get them out to vote. But it's just not going to happen. It's going to be impossible. And in fact, New York Times just did an article this weekend talking about China freaking out and their entrepreneurs ready to bail. And China's looking at Venezuela saying, hey, this could be our future. And I'm sure our people are looking at Venezuela and saying, this is what we're advocating. And I think, it's close enough to the U.S. shores that they can't keep it from making the news here in the United States. And I just don't. I have more faith in the American people that free means free, and it's not worth doing. But we have nobody else to blame but ourselves. The plutocrats and the Federal Reserve created such an environment where these kids are broke. We just got these kids, and we basically put them in as debt slaves. So, if I'm a 30-year-old kid and I'm shackled with this loan that they told me I'm going to make great money on. That's going to tickle these kids' ears. I just don't think they know what's going to happen. once they put these people in power, because they're going to quickly be pushed aside, just like the Democrats did to the African American community in the 60s and 70s. Thank you for your vote. We're going to do whatever the heck we want anyway. And I think that's really the plan. Control.
So do you think what they're doing right now, do you think this is actually helping Trump? We're approaching the 2020 elections. Do you think this is going to hurt him or help him?
I think probably in a lot of circles in dinners across the elite land, they're probably saying, hey, Trump may not be that bad of a guy, and considering the alternative. I know Michael Bloomberg, I know Warren Buffett, I know Bill Gates, even Senator Feinstein are like saying to people, whoa, whoa, whoa. So I think there's got to be a little bit of nervousness. You're starting to see New York Times doing a little bit more even-handed editorials and opinion pieces and some of the news stories that they're doing. And I mean, even China said, Trump may save China was one of the quotes in the story about trying to even reform China. So I think, Trump's going to look like the reasonable man here, especially if he's a little less bombastic going into this election, and that I think these other people are just going to look like a bunch of crazies.
So where do you think the economy goes from this point on? I mean, we're heading towards the 2020 election. I know the mainstream media was out there saying, big recession's coming. They had tons of articles. They had the date and the time, and they knew exactly when it was all going to happen. What do you think is going to happen moving into the elections and then afterwards?
Yeah, I think we stay 2 to 3% for the next 2 years. As soon as Trump gets this thing buttoned down, he's going to lay on the biggest, baddest infrastructure spending bill that you've ever seen. The Democrats are going to have no choice but to embrace it because that's one of their talking points. All that money is going to be spent in 2020, and then that'll ride through 2021, and then after that we'll have to wait and see. But I think everybody's realizing now that there's no way they can tighten, and there's no way they can reduce that balance sheet without putting us and the world into a depression. So I think they're just going to print their way through and try to manage the inflation.
Do you think he's trying to use up all of the Federal Reserve resources? We have so much debt now, it's just ridiculous. And continually drive this as far as he possibly can, because he is the debt master. He understands bankruptcy, he understands debt, until he can't drive it anymore, and then just have the gold effect come in and then maybe turn everything upside down with gold.
Yeah, it's funny you said that. I actually wrote an article about a year ago that said that in a little bit different ways. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to run it to where people don't want it anymore, and then they're simply going to reprice. We're going to wake up one day and they're going to reprice a coin, and they're going to call it the $30 trillion coin. It's going to be backed by all the gold in Fort Knox, and it's going to solve the debt. They're going to go ahead and then they're going to just reliquefy the economy backed by gold again. Absolutely, I absolutely believe that.
Bob, thank you very much for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. And before we got on, you told us about some special packages that you have for the listeners.
Yeah, Dave, like we always do when we talk, we always put together some really nice bundles for your listeners. To the end of the month, I already pre-discounted them for you up to 60% off, where they can learn to trade stocks and ETFs and cryptocurrencies, and also get our trade signals, get in the chat room. There's some really, really good deals there for people to learn to make money nearly every day in the market, and start making money like we've been helping people make money, all along. So, it's good till Thursday, and I encourage people to take advantage of it, because it's definitely the return on investment for what you pay for our services is definitely there.
Great. I'm going to be putting all the links at the bottom of the video. Thank you very much, Bob, for being on the X22 Report Spotlight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.